So I'm delighted to introduce Christina Altoff to you all this morning, this afternoon, this evening. Christina is our head of assessment in our assessment team, and she's the brainchild behind our new Onscreen mock service, which we're delighted to show you for the very first time for many of us, both within Pearson, but also for all of you, our customers, this morning. So over to you, Christina.
Thanks, Nick. Hi, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here this morning, this afternoon, or this evening, wherever you are in the world at the moment. I'm so excited to talk to you this morning. The mock service has been something we've been thinking about and planning for a really long time, and we get an awful lot of feedback from our international customers that this is a service that you would really like to be able to offer in your school as well. So completely over the moon to be able to bring this to you today. And as Nick mentioned, what we're going to go through is a very, hopefully not too brief, but a whistle-stop tour through the mock service. And I'm delighted to be able to give you a sneak peek of the platform that we're going to be delivering these mock exams on as well. So what is the mock service in a nutshell? So essentially, the mock service provides schools with Pearson Edexcel International GCSE and GCSE exams for use within your mock exams. The papers are simply sat by students and they are marked by our expert Pearson examining team. And then the results are uploaded to Results Plus for item level analysis. So essentially, this is a message I'm going to be reiterating quite a lot this morning. You make the entries and we really want to take care of everything else for you. The mock service was designed after working with lots of schools and schools feeding back to us that mock exams were really something that quite often was almost the cherry on top in terms of work-life balance, and it would just really tip teachers over the edge in terms of, you know, be working along absolutely perfectly, and then mock time would come around and the hours that you have to spend marking is a real drain and is quite exhausting, and especially at the moment. And I think it's probably quite fair to say that mocks have never been more important in terms of grabbing hold of evidence and making sure that you've got that solid evidence for all students as we go through their teaching and learning for this high stakes exams. So we wanted to pull together a service. I mean, we're very fortunate in Pearson Edexcel as one of the biggest exam boards in the world. We have a huge amount of expertise within our team that we can tap into. And what we wanted to do by designing the mock service was pull together something that would tangibly work with schools to ease the burden and just give some time back to teachers and help them in all the excellent stuff that you do day in, day out. So with the mock service, we're able to give back, we're able to actually take some of that marking on board for you and do the analysis for you, and then present to you all of the wraparound support that we have to prop up the exams as well. Now, as I mentioned before, this service was born from conversations with schools. Schools told us these were their problems, and they came to us as the awarding body for support with that. And we've identified 3 key areas that I think really help explain what the mock service is all about. So the first thing we do is we want to use the mock service to help build student confidence in preparation for those crucial high stakes exams. And I think what the mock service does in a really good way, because our examiners are marking these mock exams for students, students can then feel a little bit closer to the mindset of the examiners. So when you present their results to them, and if you took them through the results reports that we're able to produce for you, you can show them really clearly what they did really, really well, where those gaps were, and because that's been identified by the examiner, they have a really clear route through knowing what they need to be doing, knowing what they need to get their head around in preparation for those high stakes exams. And that, we've had lots of feedback from our schools, is really giving students the confidence to get the results that they deserve. Now, obviously, our examiners are trained to an exceptionally high standard. And because we're using the same examiners that we're marking your high stakes exams, you can be 100% sure that we're providing consistency of marking across that entire cohort. This really means that there's no unconscious bias there. There's no sort of gaps if you have some teachers that are more experienced than others. It's a real level playing field for your students to then bounce out of. Understanding that data, making sure that no time is wasted before you step into that really critical revision and intervention cycle that we know closely follows those high stakes exams and those weeks between mocks and exams are absolutely critical. So condensing that, making sure no time was wasted at all is one of our priorities with the mock service as well. And the other power of this service, as I've mentioned before, so we give you the exams that students will be sitting, we set them all up, we provide them with everything that they need to get going, and then our examiners mark it. And as soon as that marking has been complete, those results flow through to our results analysis tool, which some of you may be familiar with. It's called Results Plus, and you may be using this service already for some of the analysis for your high stakes exams. But Results Plus has all of that power that you can tap into for the high stakes exam analysis. It has that same power and same ability for your mock exams as well. And so in doing that, we're able to produce really detailed reports at student level, cohort level, question level, and drilling right down into item level as well. So not only does that give your students the confidence, because you can sit with them and share those reports with them so they really understand where they've done well, where those gaps were, but we've also had feedback that that's really beneficial for teachers as well. Because if you're looking at it at cohort level, our teachers have fed back that they can see at a glance any areas that they may need to be working on as well in order to fully support those students. So we also have the ability to support you in some CPD areas or training and development that you might identify from that results as well. And then again, because we want to make sure that we're giving you everything that you need to wrap around and fully support these mock exams, our expert product teams have pulled together subject-specific post-result support to really help focus in on those areas that may be identified through those exams. So for example, and forgive me because I'm not a maths teacher, but for example, if you had sat a maths mock with us and in that maths mock, you've identified that that student really needs to work much harder on their algebra or fractions or anything like that, using those reports, and then the post-results support that we'll be pulling together at subject level, you'll be able to see at a glance what areas your student needs to work on and then give them the resources that they need very, very quickly. So again, just wrapping it all up, making sure that we're taking care of every single element of that for you. Now, obviously, we are living in unprecedented times, and we can't deny the impact of COVID on schools and colleges. COVID meant that we have had to move from a largely traditional delivery method of teaching to completely digital and completely on screen in some cases. And that's why we've made the decision to deliver these exams on screen for you. And we hope that this is going to be able to help us future-proof, really, make sure your students can continue their learning journey alongside building that critical exam experience and preparation and you understanding those gaps and strengths, as well as sort of taking care of the marking burden through our examiners marking these. So these exams are delivered completely on screen, and we'll be using our platform called Modulus. And Modulus is a platform that some of you may have heard of because it's currently used to support millions of high stakes exams in Egypt. And so that's what we'll be delivering our international and GCSE English and maths mocks to your students on. Now, to help you with the planning and scheduling, we understand that mocks aren't like high stakes, and you will be needing to sort of pick and choose a date and a time that suits you and your centre. By delivering these exams on screen, we're able to increase our flexibility. And that really means that you can pick and choose exactly when you want to work with us, exactly when you want these exams to run from and to, and have that flexibility to sort of dip in and out and maybe sit multiple mocks with us if that's how your mock exams work at the moment. So On-Screen really is there to help us future-proof, to make sure we can continue supporting you should education be disrupted in your area again, and making sure that we can continue to be as flexible as we possibly can in supporting all of your students. Nick, I just wanted to pause there. Are there any questions that we wanted to address now, or do you want to wait until the end?
Yeah, just one question about does maths mock exams include maths A, maths B and further pure maths? And just to say, at the moment, it's just for mathematics A.
Thank you. Absolutely. So in terms of the subjects that we're offering, we are starting with English, literature and language and maths A. And we are going to be expanding based on customer demand. So just I know that there's going to be lots of subjects that you want to be able to offer through this, but I think it's really important that we work with you and we grow this in a sustainable way. So we will be expanding and other subjects will follow soon. So how does it all work? Basically, you make your entries for the mock service via our mock service booking portal, and we'll send you all the information that you need, including your login details, guidance documents, and everything you could need to get started on this. So we'll take care of all of the setup. We'll make sure that we've covered everything. You'll have technical support because we understand, obviously, this is something new for the majority of us. So there'll be lots of technical support on hand. But to reassure you as well, it is a very straightforward process. And after we finish this session, we'll make sure that you've got access to these slides, but also the tech requirements as well that you might need in order to deliver these on screen. The other thing that we know is we want to make sure your students and you feel as confident as possible in the lead up to these on-screen mocks. And therefore, we're going to provide you with some practice materials as well to use in your teaching and learning to really build that confidence, make sure everybody feels super comfortable. So when that mock date comes around, there's no wobbles and everybody knows exactly what the platform looks like and how to use it. So as soon as, the other thing with on-screen is everything is a lot quicker. So as soon as the students have submitted those exams, they've sat them on our platform, they submit their exams at the click of a button, that goes straight through to our examining team who mark those exams on our platform, our marking platform called eMark. So they get notified immediately, they can start working on it immediately. So there's none of this sort of waiting around for papers to sort of be bundled up, get dispatched over to us, so we can speed that whole process up in using this on screen. So our examiners will then be marking, and we know how critical it is as well for you to get a feel of how students have performed in their mock exams. And we know that actually in us taking care of the marking, some of our teachers have fed back that they feel like they might be missing out on some of that critical insight. And so to make sure you have access to those student responses, as soon as those students have clicked that submit that exam button, you'll be able to log into the booking portal and see those student responses and understand how they've got on. So that bit will be immediate. And then we give our examiners 14 days to complete all of the marking. And just to say, that's 14 days at the most, because as we said, everything is slightly condensed with on-screen, we're able to speed everything up. So that is 14 days to get the marking finished. And then as soon as that marking is done, those results automatically get uploaded to Results Plus. And we'll let you know when those results are available. So we'll let you know via email as soon as you've got those exam results, so you can jump in and start doing that critical analysis ahead of your revision and intervention cycle. We know some of you may not be familiar with Results Plus, and we are putting together some training sessions that we'll make sure you've got access to. There's also lots and lots of guidance as well. It is a really intuitive service, but there is a lot of support out there to make sure you feel comfortable in using and analysing your results in that way too. Nick, I just wanted to pause there because I can see a few more questions popping into the Q&A box.
Lots of questions. Should we go through them now and then make a good opportunity? Yeah, absolutely. So the first question is, can students choose a different time slot to take the mock test?
So yes, again, with the flexibility of on-screen, we can absolutely support students picking and choosing when they want to sit their exams, and that's something we would work with you on. So what we do with schools currently, and we have piloted this with a few schools internationally, is we have opened the window for them to sit their exams over sort of a 24-hour period, and then students have jumped in and sat their exams at the time that's been allocated by their teacher for them. So definitely increased flexibility there for them.
There's a couple of questions around other subjects, so accounting, Bangla. I think you've already answered that, but just to be clear that at the moment it's just for Maths A and English A, and then other subjects are being considered and looked at ongoing. So we'll communicate as soon as we've got the answers on those. Also, a couple of questions around pricing.
Yeah, absolutely. So the service is £7.50 for international GCSE, and that's per mock exam. And if you're sitting the GCSE qualifications, it's £5.50 per mock exam. Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry to add to that, Nick. I was just going to say, but obviously, if you've got any questions about sort of any further information on pricing or anything like that, if you wanted to reach out to your Pearson representative, they'd be happy to talk you through it and work with you.
Okay. Can students take the exams at their homes and not the centre?
Absolutely. I think the critical thing here is these are mock exams. Whilst mock exams have never been more important, we want to make sure that we retain that flexibility that students will need at the moment. And part of the reason we wanted to deliver these on screen is because we know we are going to have students that are at home. We know we're going to have students that are isolating, all those sorts of things. So we have lots of guidance on our website on how you can support your students sitting those exams on screen and how you can support them and make sure that you've still got the confidence that they're sort of sitting them under exam-based conditions. All of that is on our website, and we'll make sure you've got the link to that following this session.
Okay, a couple of questions about whether the mock service is available for A-levels, international A-levels.
Oh, again, we are desperate to introduce it to international A-levels. So watch this space, it's on its way.
Okay, a question about whether the mock will cover the entire syllabus, and will it be in the same format as the actual exam?
Exactly that, yes. So we'll be in the same format as the actual exam. For English, it's very simple and straightforward to get these exams on screen. For maths, there are a couple of questions that we have worked with the senior examining team to tweak slightly, because as you can imagine, it's quite tricky to do drawing and things like that on screen. So we've worked really closely with the examining team to make sure they are a very, very close reflection of those papers, the paper-based exams, and that they are of level, that they are assessing the same sort of content, and that they are level with the exams that you'll be getting on paper as well. So they are exactly the same, as in sort of the time that it takes, everything else. There are just a couple of questions for maths. I think it's around 5% of the paper that we've worked with the senior examiner that you'll notice have had a couple of tweaks. But again, we share all of that information with you up front. So we outline exactly what those questions are, so there'll be no surprises in that exam paper.
Okay, thank you. There's a good question here about students asking if they can have a paper copy of the inserts, i.e. extracts for English language, to annotate and write on by hand, but type the responses online. Is that possible?
So we have had this question a couple of times, and we're unable to send out print copies of the papers because that will drive our costs up. And what we want to do here is provide you with a service that is completely on screen, that is really future-proof. So we don't need to be relying on paper copies of everything. In a moment, I'm going to demo the platform, and you'll be able to see how easy it is for students to highlight text on screen, to add notes and to type things into the notes. They can copy and paste certain elements of text into the notes as well. So it would be really interesting to understand how that customer is feeling after we've sort of gone through the capabilities of the platform, and then we can even give them access to, and that's something again that we can talk about in a moment, but what we can do is give you access to our demo site, which is sort of a sandbox environment that I'm going to jump into in a moment, where you can answer lots of questions, but no data is saved. So what we hope will happen by giving you access to that is you'll be able to get a real good feel of what the platform looks like and what your students will experience in sitting those exams on screen.
Right, and just a few people just wanting the price clarified again. So is the price per pupil, per paper, which it is? Yeah. Good question here, which is a nice link into the next stage of the presentation, is can you describe the platform and how students will write their answers to the exam questions? So I think we can do better than that. We can actually show you. So Christina, I'll let you go into the demo.
Thank you. So just to reiterate some of the questions that have come through just a moment ago, before we jump into the demo, we are the only awarding organisation that can offer the mock service, and it is available for your international GCSE and GCSE maths, English language and English literature. You can sit these mock exams via the service from January 2022, but you can make entries for your mocks for next year now. We know all of the planning starts happening really, really early. So, and we have had some international centres jump in and start making entries today. So that's all open, and yes, we'll send you the link shortly after this presentation so you can start making your entries as soon as possible. Right, bear with me just for a second while I come out of this and jump into the live demo. I'm not very technically savvy, so just be a tiny bit patient with me. Oh, crikey, there we go. got a bar of doom up the top, so I'm just going to try and expand that one. Here we go. Nick, can you see that okay? Fabulous. So this is exactly what your students would see. And what I'm about to jump into here is, as I've described a moment ago, this is our sandbox environment. This is our space that we can give anyone access to, where they can just jump in, have a play around, and really just get a feel to what this platform looks like, what it feels like, and what it's, you know, how your students will be able to answer those questions. So I'm just going to sign in. And you can see here, I've got a couple of papers just here, English language component 1 and English language component 2. So let's jump in and start having a look. Now this page should look familiar, and that's completely purposeful. So we've tried to keep it as closely to what your students would have been expecting to see when they log in or when they open a copy of their high stakes exams. So no surprises on this page. And this is what it looks like when they actually get into the exam itself. So you can see here we have a split screen across 2 sections. Your text is on the left-hand side, and you can scroll all the way down to the bottom. And when you stop scrolling, the page freezes exactly where that student has stopped scrolling. And then on the right-hand side, we have your question here. You can see exactly how many marks it is worth. And then you have the text box for students to be typing their answers in as well. Just going to move this over here. So what we can do, some of the tools that we have access to here are, and exactly as our colleague just asked the question a moment ago, we have the highlight functionality. So as your students are going through, they can very quickly and easily scroll across the content, right click on it, and it'll highlight it yellow. They then can type as much as they want to in this box here. And then the more they type, obviously the bigger the box gets as they scroll down. They can use any of the bold functionality, italics, underline, and they can also create bullet points. There are undo and redo buttons here as well. So undo that one, redo that one. And we have a wealth of tools to tap into here on the right-hand side as well. So one of the things that our colleague just a moment ago asked in the Q&A box, in the Q&A, was around students making notes and sort of highlighting the text and making notes. And we have a couple of functionalities here, and it just depends on your student's preference. But we have the notepad that they can use to take notes on, and again, can copy and paste text and pop it in. We also have the sticky notes as well, which tends to be my preference. I'm not sure why. There we go. So we have the sticky notes here as well. And again, these can be minimized, and they can be maximized, and they can be deleted. And sticky notes, as you're going through, sticky notes will stay stuck. So as your student moves through as your student moves through the exam, that sticky note will stay exactly where it is. And when they go back, they can have a look at their notes again. The other part that we wanted to just highlight was some of the tools on here. So they can flag items. And as they go through the text again, or as they go through the exam, that item will remain flagged. So when they get to the last page, and they maybe had a couple of questions, or they had a little bit of difficulty with that first question, so they've decided to flag it. As they get to the end of the exam, they can then go back and review their responses and make sure that they're completely comfortable with everything that they had, everything that they answered. We also have, I know we had a question earlier about accessibility options, and I'm delighted to say that the beauty of Onscreen is we're able to very, very quickly and easily support a number of accessibility requirements. At the click of a button, we can move from sort of different backgrounds, different text colors, different font sizes, and zoom. And I believe a question we had earlier was around scribe. Now, that is functionality that we are currently working on. We don't currently have it we won't have it for launch in January, but it's going to follow really quickly afterwards. So if your student requires a scribe at the moment, we would advise that you have that scribe with them in the room as they would for their exams normally, and they would behave exactly as they would for the paper exam. and we'll share with you and keep you in the loop as soon as we have access to any more information on our Scribe functionality via on-screen assessments. I think that might have been everything that I was going to show you on here. Nick, are there any questions around the functionality that we wanted to jump into?
Yes, lots more questions. So one of the questions that's coming through is about how they type and respond to maths questions. Obviously, this is an English example, so that's come up a few times.
Yeah, absolutely. And maths is it does behave differently. We are working with our senior examiners to make sure we have created the best possible example of the maths paper, and we will have in this sandbox environment a maths practice paper test for you to jump into by the end of next week. We just couldn't get it through the line for me to be able to show you this right now, but we'll have it by the end of next week, and you'll be able to jump in and have a play around with the maths questions. And then, Nick, it might be maybe potentially in the future we could come back and we could do a bit of a maths demo as well when that practice paper is available for us.
Absolutely, I think that would be really useful and much appreciated by the audience by the look of the questions. A couple more on functionality. Can students use a stylus to write on the document?
No, unfortunately not at the moment. We can't support stylus, so it literally is keyboard only. Stylus comes with stylus requires a different technology set completely. But again, it's something that we're working on because we understand that some of our centres, that's your preference when it comes to on-screen teaching. But unfortunately for the on-screen mocks, we are keyboard based at the moment only.
And there's one about, is there a reader option?
So I believe that comes in with the scribe question. Oh no, the reader option, that's on its way as well. We can't support readers at the moment. So if your student requires a reader, we would have the same answer as we do for the scribe. So you would need to be approaching that in exactly the same way.
Can students view both texts side by side in order to answer the comparison question?
So they toggle between the two texts at the moment. So we have, I'm not sure if I've got an example here. Right, let me go up as I'm sharing. But when you have two texts that you need to compare, it normally says text A and text B here, and the students toggle between the two.
Yeah. Question about English literature and whether the mocks will reflect the same adjustments as the 2022 exams.
That's a great question. I'm not sure we can answer that at the moment because we are still waiting for some confirmation on what that will look like for us. So as soon as we have an answer on that, I'll be able to come back to you. Unfortunately, I'm not able to answer that right now.
Okay. There's still some questions around the timing of, how long students have to take the exams and where they can take the exams and the flexibility around that. Can we just clarify that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the timings of the exams, they reflect exactly as you would with the high stakes paper. So I believe, let's have a look at what this one, I think this paper is 90 minutes, or it will be, this is obviously a practice test that's down for 20, but I believe this paper is 90 minutes, and that's what the mock would reflect as well. Now, if your student requires additional time, there is an option on the booking portal for you to add as much extra time as they need based on their requirements. It's really simple, but we do have lots of guidance to walk you through it as well if that's required. The other part of that question, Nick. So there was the question around time, and there was another bit as well I've forgotten.
And the clarification about at home, taking the exams at home, or where they can take them, if there's a flexibility about when and where they can take them.
Yeah, absolutely. You're the experts and your students, and we know you're teaching in a variety of different settings at the moment. So if your student is home based at the minute and that's where they're doing all of their learning, that's where they would have to be sitting their mock, then absolutely you can sit those mock exams on screen at home, and we have an awful lot of guidance if you need it to support the delivery of those mock exams at home. I think the important thing is just maintaining the integrity of the mock exam to make sure you've got complete confidence in that the student has completed to the best of their ability without any additional help in sitting them at home. But we have an awful lot of guidance to support you if you needed it.
Thanks. There's a couple of questions about technology setup. So what are the requirements? Can students take the test on an iPad? couple of connectivity questions. So anything around the general technology requirements and do's and don'ts.
Absolutely. I mean, we could go into that here. We have a really clear list of our technology requirements that I think it would be really useful to send out to everybody after this session, rather than go through it now. I think the key things are bandwidth, so making sure that you've got a good solid connection and that the bandwidth can cope with running multiple mock exams in your centre at the same time. Our preference would always be school technology. So if you have a lot of school laptops, that would be our preference, but also appreciate that your students may be bringing their own technology into school or working from home. And, you know, we support that as well. We just need a few extra checks on the students' technology just to make sure that they're completely secure and that they can cope with the system as we're running through it. But it isn't very demanding in terms of bandwidth. The only time that it can be a little bit stretched is when we're running hundreds at the same time. So it's just always good to check your centre's bandwidth and make sure that it can cope with that. But we'll send you the technical requirements straight after the session, if that's all right, Nick.
Absolutely, and quite a few questions about sending a copy of the recording. We will absolutely send, let you know when the recording is available. We'll also send you all the links that Christina referenced in her presentation, and we'll also make a note of all the Q&As that we're getting. So if we don't answer anything now, we've got a little bit more time to go through the questions, but we'll also follow up just to be clear on some of the questions and answers, because some people are continue to ask for clarification, so we'll be clear on that. And if we've already got the information on the website, we're clearly not presenting it clearly enough, so we'll update and amend that. There's a couple of questions around working with the British Council, one about making entries and payments. So any information for our centres who work with our British Council partners would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been working really closely with the British Council, and we have a process set up with them now that we are delighted to be able to run through. So if you're a British Council centre and you're interested in using the mock service, you need to let your British Council representative know, and they will make the entries on your behalf. You'll also have access to all of the results plus. So as soon as you get those results through as well, there'll be no delays from that side. So the only thing that the British Council need to know is that you want to make entries in the first place, and they'll take that on for you.
A couple of questions about the marking and the timing of the marking. So first one being, could they opt to mark in-house because the timeline, the 14 days timeline, is too long for them?
Yeah, absolutely. This is really interesting, actually, because we thought when we were first launching the service, we thought that some schools may want to mark the mocks themselves, and actually the value of the service is us picking it up and sort of collating it all and then presenting results back to them. So that's something we're now going to look to expand the service out to. So currently, the marking is all done by our examining team, but based on school feedback, we are looking to expand the service out to enable teachers to mark it themselves as well. And what that would look like is very, very similar, but the key difference being is we would train you up on our marking platform called eMark, and we would give you access to it, so you'd do the marking, and then as soon as your marking is complete, those results would flow through to Results Plus, exactly as we have described today. So sorry to say it's another watch this space. We're working on it, and we'll have something for you soon.
Thank you. There's another question about how many mocks they can take. So will the papers be different each time? So I guess it's about the paper makeup, and a similar question about how the test would be made up, whether it be made up from past papers, a mix of past papers, new questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we launch, these papers will be the 2021 secure past papers. So they'll be the freshest content that we can pull together really quickly, and those will be the exams that you're able to tap into. And then beyond that, what we're going to be looking to do is pull together, exactly as our colleague has just described there, past paper, secure mock exams that are made up of a mixture of past paper questions. And we think that's really important to make sure that you've got that comparison data. So one of the great things that we can do within Results Plus is you can then compare your cohort to the national average on how that cohort performed on that particular question when they sat it as part of the high stakes exams. So moving forward, we will have increased content that you'll be able to tap into. At launch, these will be the 2021 papers that you'll be able to use for your mock exams, but we will be increasing as the months go on.
Thank you. There's a couple of questions about on-screen versus paper. So one, they're related. One is asking if this is an on-screen mock, but they're taking paper exams, is that confusing for the students? Another one about could we not do a paper exam and still send that to you for marking? So yeah, just the on-screen versus the paper-based mock service.
Yeah, absolutely. The service is on screen only. We're not going to be doing a paper-based version for the reasons we outlined earlier on. We want to make sure that we can be very responsive. We want to retain the flexibility. And as soon as we move to paper, it slows us right down. And we can't be as flexible with our customers, and we can't really meet your needs in as much as when you want to sit these exams and how quickly you need those results back by. So we are only offering this on screen. I think the question around on screen versus paper in terms of setting students up and preparing them for the high stakes exams is really, really valid. Obviously, on screen is going to really help you understand what they've understood in the specification. It's going to make sure that it's assessing all of the content that they'll be covering in the same assessment, but what it won't be doing is preparing them for writing for a couple of hours in one fell swoop. There are certain parts of it that we just can't prepare students for using these on screen. But I think the benefit of the service is those examiners marking those scripts and you having complete visibility of what the examiner is expecting to see and where those students' strengths and weaknesses may be, and enabling you to sort of look at that data, do the analysis and move really quickly to prepare them ahead of the high stakes exams.
Thank you. Really good question about proctoring on the platform, which always does come up when we start talking about on screen.
And I'm going to have to say again, it's another watch this space. Proctoring is on its way. We are working with a number of different companies to find the best solution for us. We are looking to sort of test a proctoring model. So I would love to hear from centres that want to work with us on the mock service that we could sort of do some piloting with. That's what we're desperate to do next. But in the meantime, there are other solutions outside of formal proctoring that we are working on to support the mocks at home, for example, if those students are sitting those mock exams at home, and that's all outlined on our website as well. So if you are interested in sitting the mocks with us and would be willing to sort of take part in a proctoring pilot with us, do reach out to your representative and we can work together and try and get something sorted.
A few questions around the paper availability again. So will there be regional papers available for maths?
No, there's not going to be regional papers available. It's the one paper available at launch.
Okay, and what about the levelling of the papers? Will they all be higher tier papers?
Nope, they will match exactly as the high stakes exam. So if there's higher in foundation, that's what we'll be matching as well. Okay, great.
There was a couple of people asking it still about the length of the duration of the papers. I think someone missed the answer and just asked us to clarify. So just a clarification again on the timetabling and the length of the papers would be great.
We're mirroring exactly as the high stakes papers will be. So however long those high stakes papers are, if it's 90 minutes or 60 minutes per paper, that's what our mock exams will be as well. We do have the ability to add extra time for those candidates that require it via the system. So you can be confident that nothing's going to time out on them.
Once again, I think we've answered this with the on-screen versus paper, but someone has asked whether they could have the option to have an answer sheet and take photos and upload the PDF to the mock service.
No, we don't have the functionality for them to upload PDFs, unfortunately. This is wholly on screen. the exams are wholly delivered via the platform that you can see here.
Right. Yes, so a couple of questions again about the recording of this video. That's we'll be sharing that afterwards and following up with some of these answers to these great questions. Someone's asked, once the students are logged into the online system, are all the other programs on the computer locked, for example, internet and other files?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And we have that functionality. So we can lock down the browsers if that's what's required. And again, we would work with you. So some of our schools do that automatically. So their own technicians want to handle all of that locking down of browsers and all of that tech side of things. The system has functionality to lock down browsers, and we can work with the centre to make sure that happens. It's a great question.
Yeah, really good. We have got a question about whether there'll be a demo test option in advance of the actual online mock exam.
I'm not sure what that. I'm not sure what that.
So I'm wondering whether this is the access to maybe the sandbox environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, there we go. My 20-minute session has timed out. I'm just going to switch back onto the presentation. Let me know if you can see that. Okay, Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah, fab. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. So yes, absolutely. We have the sandbox environment, and what we can do when you work with your representative, we'll make sure that they have all the instructions on how to make sure that you can get access to it. And that's the reason that it's there, really. We want to make sure that you can have a play around and get a good feel and feel quite comfortable and confident that it's the right fit for you in sitting these mock exams.
And just for colleagues who are wondering what a sandbox environment is, it's like a test area, it's like a demo area. It's just a technical way of describing that.
Apologies, I keep doing that actually. When we say sandbox, it just means it's a safe space for us to play around with, and I can be confident that I'm not going to break anything when I jump in and answer lots of questions and come out again. But yes, we want to make sure that you've got access to that. And as I said, what you'll notice over the coming weeks is that more content will drop into that space. So you can sort of play around with English and maths and understand how the systems operate differently across both of those subjects.
Still some questions coming through about timetable, making entries, the deadline for making entries, when they can make entries, when the actual timetable will be. I mean, Christina will give you an overview now, but that's something we will continue to write to you about and will be on our website. So we'll send the links to the relevant pages. But Christina, if you'd like to just give an overview of that process.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll make sure you've got links to the website now and our booking app as well. And what happens is you go onto the International Mock Service webpage and you let us know that you're intending to offer these mock exams with us. At that point, we then get you set up with an account on our booking portal, and you'll get all of the information and instructions on how to make those entries and when you can make those entries. As I said, that booking window is open now, so you can start making entries now for those exams. And all we need is 3 weeks to get you set up and make sure you've got those practice materials sent through and that you've had a chance to log in before your mock exam date. So if you can just give us 3 weeks ahead of your exams to make those entries, we'll be in contact very quickly. We'll get you completely set up. We'll send you the practice materials and give you access to the sandbox, and then you'll be good to go. But we'll make sure you've got that access to all of that information when we send the slides through as well.
Thank you. A question about whether invigilation for mock exams is required, so similar to the running of the exam.
Oh, great question again. Yes, so we have an invigilator platform, and again, it's completely up to you to how you're set up in your centre and how you choose to operate mocks at the moment. But through the Onscreen mock exam service, what we have is an invigilator platform where we would recommend that your normal invigilator sort of has an account, gets set up, and then they can oversee every single student that's sitting a mock on their screen at that time. And they can see if they've got their hand up, if that student needs help. They can see at a glance what question they're currently on. So you can see if any students got a little bit stuck, or if they look like they're having a little bit of difficulty. That will all be flagged up via the Invigilator platform on your screen. And we have a video of that as well. So I didn't want to demo that here, but if it's required, we can come back and do another session on the Invigilator platform and the other elements of Onscreen. We do have a couple of videos as well that will outline what that platform looks like for you.
Thank you. Still some more questions coming through on answering questions on screen, mainly around maths and whether there would be more time given to that, an allocation to that. And I think Christina, for anybody who joined late, Christina said that we would hopefully, once we've got the, more to show on the maths platform, we can come back and do a more detailed session on that. We're just trying to give you an overview and a general feel for the mock service in this session. There's clearly lots of interest in a deeper dive and going into some of the detail by subject. So we'll come back on that, and we'll answer that need, which seems to be coming through in these questions. There's a question about plagiarism. It just says, what about plagiarism? So I don't know what that's related to, or I guess maybe a general question around security of the system. I think it might relate to locking down on the internet question. I think that all relates to that. So everything else is locked down, unlikely to be able to do any copying and pasting. Anything to add, Christina, on the security of the system?
Well, we're using the system, as I mentioned straight at the very beginning. The Modulus platform is used to support millions of high stakes exams in Egypt at the moment. So the system goes through very, very rigorous security checks. As Nick mentioned, we can lock down the browser, so your students are unable to navigate outside of the test player at the time they're sitting their test. I can't think, forgive me if I'm not answering this question as you'd expect, but I don't think there's anything else that we are very, very confident in the security of the system. It goes through very rigorous testing annually as part of the high stakes testing. And we will work with any centre if they needed their browsers locked down. If there are any additional security questions, we can work with you to resolve that and our technical team.
Yeah. A similar question to the taking mocks at home, and then an onward question about invigilation of mocks at home, and then a related question about where if they make entries through the British Council, will they take these mocks at the British Council, at school, or at home? So once again, a very similar theme of question coming through there.
Yeah, absolutely. So if your students are currently learning at home, or that's their normal setting, then absolutely we support you needing to sit those mocks at home. We have all of that guidance and support on the website that will make sure you've got access to support the delivery of mock exams at home. And working with the British Council, I think it largely depends on the relationship you have with the British Council, because obviously that will differ country to country, and how your centre is currently set up. So the British Council have advised they will take on the setting up of the entries, and if you require it, the invigilation of these on-screen exams as well. And then I think it would be, depending on the setup of your centre, up to you and the British Council to have a conversation on what that would look like. And we will, if there's anything you need from us to make sure we're supporting you in that conversation, then we're happy to help as well.
Thank you. Great question here about post mocks support, whether we provide the we recommended support, or whether that's at the discretion of the teachers. So yeah, maybe a little bit around post mock support services. And
absolutely. So Results Plus, as I mentioned right at the very beginning, does some amazingly detailed reports, so you can see at the click of a button where your students' strengths are, where they maybe need to work a little bit harder on. And so it's very, very clear at question level or item level what that student might need to be focused on. And then we've worked with our product teams, and our product teams are the teams responsible for providing all of that support. So the resources, the training, anything that you need to support the delivery of your high stakes qualifications, that is our product team. And what the product team have done is they've worked with us on the mock service to bring those two things together. So they've looked at many Results Plus reports, and they have pinpointed out where we could then map our resources to. So the idea being that you can see that you've got a group of students that are struggling with algebra, and then you can see on our post-mock support document, right, well, this is all of the support that we have for algebra, and you can jump straight into it.
Some really good questions coming through about final exams on screen, which of course, once again, does come up a lot when we start talking about on-screen mocks. And I think if we've heard Christina say it a lot throughout this call, you know, watch this space, as it's no secret that Pearson have this technology capability for on-screen assessment, and the business is definitely looking into that. But this is specifically around mocks, but as soon as we've got more to say on that, we will of course be in touch with this group. There's a few clarification questions once again around timetabling, entries. I think we'll follow all that up clearly and send the relevant links. There's a few questions once again about the difference between the English and maths papers, and some questions around specific subjects and the time, you know, when we plan to have more subjects coming through, and questions around whether, you know, how we would answer economics and business questions. Once again, we'll be able to answer those questions as soon as we have those subjects on a roadmap and we can share more information with you. Still some late questions around pricing, so if we can just clarify the pricing once again, just another clarification on the pricing.
Yeah, absolutely. So for international GCSEs, it is £7.50 per student per paper. And if you are sitting GCSEs, it's £5.50 per student per paper.
Great. A good follow-on question to Results Plus. Is there any training on how to use Results Plus? We do have training and support videos on Results Plus, and I do believe there is some exam officer training that covers Results Plus. So once again, we can send the links to that on. That's a really good question. This Penny is new to Pearson this term, so that's a great point. Yeah. Well made. So we'll make sure we get that out to you.
Well, absolutely. Welcome, Penny. The other thing that we want to be able to do is we are going to be running some drop-in sessions for Results Plus much more frequently, because one of the things we've learned over the past couple of years is obviously without high stakes assessments happening, tools like Results Plus, the knowledge of them have sort of dropped a little bit, and it is incredibly powerful for both mock analysis via the mock service, but also your high stakes analysis. So we'll make sure that any sessions that are coming up, Nick, if we get some communications out to this group as well, so they can come along if they would like to.
Yeah, someone's asked about individual candidate logins and how that gets, how they are distributed and generated.
Yeah, great question. We take care of all of that. So as soon as you've made your entries, our technical team run through and create login details for all of those students, and we then share them with the person that made the entries in the first place. So they are securely transferred back to that person, the original person that made those entries. And that's why we would recommend that it's your exams officer that makes those entries, if you have one, because they are quite used to those sorts of things. So that's where those login details will go.
Okay. A couple of questions again about how often we'll be running the mock service, the on-screen mock service.
Yeah, so at launch, we will have the one paper, and that will run until April, and we will then have another paper available for you in September. So we've tried to align with when most of our centres are telling us they want to sit their mock exams, and obviously we appreciate there's going to be quite a very busy period midway through the year. So what we're trying to do is make sure that you've got fresh content that sits and lands with you at the right time when you're planning your mock exams.
Still just some calls to have clarification on the predefined schedule or timetable and when students can and can't take their mocks. So just a clarification once again on the window when students can actually sit and physically take their mock exams.
So between January and April would be when you can sit your mock exams with us for next term. And then again, we'll run another session. There'll be another window from September to December in 2022.
And students can, schools can timetable at any time,
That's
as long
correct.
as they've made their entries at least 3 weeks in advance.
That's correct.
Brilliant. We're coming to the end of the session. Thank you ever so much, Christina. There are some unanswered questions. A lot of them are versions of questions you've already answered, so I won't go over and make you repeat yourself anymore. But for anybody who still is wanting clarification, we've made a note of that, and we'll make sure we can provide that clarification on our website, and we will email you with the links to that information. And a couple of people saying thank you ever so much for the session, Christina. It's been very informative, and I'm sure everybody will be looking forward to future sessions and training and the deeper dive into maths and English. So thank you very much. And a huge thank you to everybody who's joined. We've had an overwhelming response to this, and it's great to see everybody's as excited as we are.
Thanks, everyone. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and really looking forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Take care.